What's going on, everybody? It's Mark, the Knucklehead Naturalist. I'm out here at the Villa Park Public Library, man, one of my favorite places. I just filled my brain with information. All right, I suggest everybody do that. It's really, really cool to do. Come on, man, I'm trying to make a video here. I wanted to talk about this bioswale. Okay, there's a bioswale out here that's really cool. This is a bioswale, similar to a rain garden. They both kind of serve the same purpose, right? A rain garden is where you're planting native plants that are conducive to wet soils in sort of a low spot, a lowland area, or a quote-unquote problem area. Maybe you have an area that floods a lot, so you would plant a rain garden there, and that would sort of help that water infiltrate. And then obviously it's providing an incredible amount of habitat and ecological function with those natives, right? A bioswale is essentially the same thing, but it is more purposefully planted, used more in the realm of public works and infrastructure. All of the rainwater that hits this parking lot and trickles down, God knows what's on this parking lot, right? Those pollutants, and they kind of collect and they come down with that rainwater. That water comes down in here. The bioswale completely filters all of that stuff out. It's called bioremediation. As that water penetrates the soil, it goes through that incredibly robust, expansive network of roots and gets filtered before it hits our water table, cleaning our water. And even on this cold October day, it's still looking amazing. I love our vegetation when it's in this transformative state. It's gone to seed. You get those dried seed heads. You get the light capturing some of that, those spent blooms and stuff. Man, there's a lot of helicopter activity out here. So there are a pretty good amount of plant species in here. Right off the bat here is this Symphyotrichum ericoides. This is Heath's aster. The mailman's over there. Hope he doesn't trip on my bike. Dude, you got a bumblebee. There are wasps on this. This is a grand bazaar. This is a pollinator just buffet right now. But that's a good one. That's one of our native asters. Again, that's Symphyotrichum ericoides, which is Heath's aster. You have one of the Onothera species, the tall primrose. You've got kind of the who's who of our native grasses in here, which is funny because you actually have this previously planted Carl Forrester grass, the Home Depot special there. But over here is the true grasses, right? Our native grasses. You've got, this is Andropogon gerardii, big blue stem. That's our state grass here in Illinois. Illinois, the prairie state, where there's 0.001% of prairies left. You have got Indian grass, Sorghastrum nutans in there. You've got, where did I see it? Right over here is Panicum virgatum. That is switchgrass. That's another one of our beautiful native grasses. Right over here is cup plant, one of the silphiums. That's Silphium perfoliatum. There's tons of cup plant there. I love that one. That's one of my favorite silphiums. It's aggressive. If you put it in your yard, beware. But it is a good one because it has that perfoliate leaf structure, meaning that there's no petioles. There's no stem to the leaf per se, right? That main stem, that beautiful big square beefy main stem comes directly through those leaves, right? That's a perfoliate leaf. And obviously that plays like a beautiful chalice, like a cup, and that holds water in there. Even long after a rainfall, there will be a small amount of water in there for pollinators. Pollinators need water too. All of you people that want to install pollinator gardens, you got to have a little water source. The best practice to that is to get a shallow dish, put a bunch of pebbles in there, and then put water in there. They need a spot to land on. There's big blue stem again, the inflorescence looking absolutely electrified. I guess this is not the most opportune time to film. I got the U.S. Postal truck over here. And there's a lot of other people. There's probably people staring at the weird guy out there taking pictures by the weeds, right? This is not weeds. This is a bioswale. These are all beautiful keystone native species, okay? Again, you've got that entire colony of cup plant going on back here. That's a huge one. There's your milkweed there. That's common milkweed. That's Asclepias syriaca. These right here are the seed pods, right? That's called a follicle. That's a fun thing to say. Right now, these are still very tender and they're not ready to go, but they will dry out, they'll crack open, and all of those seeds are in there connected to some beautiful silk. But only a few of these have busted open. This is here's a seed, okay? And it's attached to this beautiful silk called pappus, right? Obviously, the silk helps it blow in the wind and make more milkweed. It's pretty awesome. And nothing beats kind of coming up and seeing a split open seed pod with all of those seeds in there. That's a bad shot. Come on, Mark, you could do better than that. A more tame and user-friendly, what I would call kind of a gateway milkweed for the conventional gardener, is Asclepias tuberosa. It's just commonly called butterfly milkweed, not to be confused with the kind of non-native, invasive, if you will, butterfly bush. This is butterfly milkweed or butterfly weed. Again, Asclepias tuberosa. That's why you should always just speak in botanical Latin, right? Then you know exactly what plant someone's talking about. But yep, this is looking amazing. This is a great kind of a cross section. You've got native, incredibly beneficial and impactful in terms of being host plants, critical to the life cycle of a lot of our native insects. And then you look at something like this, and that's your Home Depot special. That's reed feathergrass. Carl Forrester, I think, is the cultivar name. You know, you see that everywhere. Okay, that's yesterday's kind of planting, right? And maybe it works in certain areas. I just kind of went against my own rule. I've never been one to kind of finger wag for not planting native, unless you're planting some heinous invasive stuff. Then, you know, maybe I'll wag my finger at you. I'm not going to shame somebody for having a few of these in their yard. I've got a couple still that I didn't bother to yank out. They're from yesteryear. They're there. They're in the mix. They're not hurting anybody. It's not an invasive species. But I have a myriad of other, you know, natives in my yard, just like this here. This is one of the Rudbeckias, right? This is technically, I think the common name is brown-eyed Susan. This is Rudbeckia triloba, which is different from Rudbeckia hirta, the black-eyed Susan. But that's a good one. People are familiar with that. That's another species of aster down here. I wouldn't begin to know every single aster species. There's a ton of them. It's a very expansive plant genus, right? But back here you've got some goldenrods. This is an incredibly important plant. We see these on roadsides. They're very common here. You know, and they're easily taken for granted, but they are truly a keystone native species, meaning that they provide an immense amount of ecological value, right? Here's more of that cup plant that have gone to seeds, nature's bird feeder, okay? In here, these little parts in here are called phyllaries, and inside this are all of the seed. If you really start, these ones have already dropped. If you start peeling these all back, you know, that's the seed in there. Anyways, rock and roll. There's some chicory in there. That is not native. That's technically a weed, but I absolutely love chicory. Yep, you could mark that down. Mark said he loves chicory, a non-native weed. But it's not super aggressive. It's not nearly as bad as some of our other invasive species, like buckthorn and honeysuckle and phragmites and all of that stuff. There's really not a ton of signage here. I'm going to have to walk over this. So the only thing, there's just this little Bioswale sign. And God bless the person that wrote that. I think this is an incredible planting. A massive hats off to the folks involved in this.